All right, and welcome back to the channel. Just looking through the newest Hornady reloading manual. Stuff I've already known, but it's pretty interesting. You look at the 7mm Remington Magnum, come out in 1962, and it was basically came from the 300 H&H Magnum. Had that same belt on it. All the Weatherby cases came from that 300 H&H Magnum. The 300 H&H Magnum came from the 375 H&H Magnum, which was produced all the way back in 1912. Wow. Man, we're getting old school now. 1912, the H&H Magnum came out, the 375 H&H Magnum. And it's still used today. When people talk about African calibers, like what's the best all-around African caliber, most people said the 375 H&H. You know, there's the 375 Ruger, which is more modern, has some advantages. And of course, you got much bigger calibers, but everyone always says if you want the best all-around African caliber for plains game and dangerous game, get the 375 H&H Magnum from 1912. It's pretty cool. Think about that, 1912. The 30-06 is 6 years older. It's pretty amazing. And what cartridge did it come from? Well, it came from the 7mm Mauser from the 1890s. 30-06 is just a lengthened 7mm Mauser necked up to 30 caliber. Pretty interesting. In fact, almost all of our calibers eventually came from just a few cartridges. You think about the 30-06, the 270, the 280, the 35 Whelen, the 25-06 all came from the 30-06. You think about your 308 in the 50s and all the things that came from it, the 243, the 7mm Odd 8, the 260, the 338 Federal, so on and so forth. Like I just said, all the Weatherby cartridges, or most of them, came from the 300 H&H, which came from the 375 H&H. You know, your 264 Win Mag and your 7mm Remington Magnum and all those, the 300 Winchester Magnum, they all basically derive from the design of the 375 H&H Magnum. And you look at all your short magnums today and all your Remington Ultra Magnums, they all, and I believe all the Nosslers too, basically all came from the 404 Jeffries, made way back when. There's really not a whole lot of cartridges that are parent cartridges in the big scheme of things. But as time has went on, we have got more and more efficient, more modern designed cartridges. You know, you think of the 375 Ruger versus the 375 H&H. Think of the 308 versus the 30-06. You think of the 6.5 Creedmoor versus the 264 Winchester Magnum. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. As times went on, we've just developed better technology and learned how to make cartridges seemingly more inherently accurate and definitely more efficient and better for long range. And we've adapted our rifles to have faster twist rates and to use longer per caliber, heavier ballistically coefficient bullets. And so we've definitely gotten better. You think of the 243 versus the 6mm Creedmoor. 6mm Creedmoor is just kind of an advantage in every way. But the 243 is awesome. So the question today is, are classic calibers better than modern calibers, cartridges? There's a lot of people out there that say, oh my gosh, I've shot a 270 and my dad shot a 270 and my grandpa shot a 270. That round was created in 1925, by the way. My whole family has used 270s, and we've never had any trouble, and we've always killed whatever animal we were going for. And just look at Jack O'Connor in Outdoor Life, all the trips across the world that he went on, and he always used the 270. So the 270 is the greatest of all time. And how dare somebody, how dare somebody try to replace it? And then you think of the reverse, like let's just use a 6.8 Western. You got people nowadays that's like the 6.8 Western is the greatest cartridge of all time. It's a million times better than the 270. Even though it came from the 270 short mag, it's way better, more versatile. How could you be so old, and how could you be so, weird to want to go back to the 270 Winchester when you have a 6.8 Western? So those are extreme arguments, but there's all this hype with the new modern cartridges, and there's all this overwhelming nostalgia with the classic cartridges, and there's this kind of a battle there. Well, the truth is subjective, of course. Let's just use the example. 6.8 Western versus 270 Winchester. Which one would you go with? If a person had no rifles, I would ask them a few questions. Do you want something that's been around a long time, it's easy to get the ammo for at the moment, and you're not looking to really go deep into it, you just want something that's common and popular and has a proven track record, go with the 270 Winchester. Or, well, if you're looking toward the future and you care about the ballistics and you want a cartridge with more versatility, then probably your 6.8 Western is the way to go. I think it's definitely got more power. Definitely you're going to have the ability to use heavier per caliber, high ballistic coefficient bullets. If you ever wanted to shoot 1,000 yards, your 6.8 Western would be much better. So all in all, I'd probably tell you to go with the 6.8 Western. But if you said, I've been shooting a 270 for 30 years, are you telling me I need to sell that 270 and get the 6.8 Western? The answer would be no. Don't do that. A 270 is awesome. A 270, there's a reason it's been around since 1925, and it's still as popular as it is. There's a reason that the 30-06 has been around since 1906, and it's as popular as it is. Okay? There is something good about the 30-06. There's something good about the 270. And those are just examples. There's something good about the 375 H&H. There obviously was some interesting things about the 404 Jeffries, and tweak it a little bit and you can come up with some neat things. So, classic cartridges versus modern cartridges, which is better? They're both good. If you already have a 30-06, you already have 30-06, and you've practiced with it, and you're good with it, and you've made some hand loads, these 165 grain Sierra Game Kings, and you've killed deer with them, and you've got other stuff you'd like to load and go hunt elk, and you know how the gun shoots, and it shoots good, and you found the right loads. By the way, this might be a 115-year-old design, but with modern cases, with modern bullets, and with modern powder, this is better than ever. So there's no reason, zero reason to sell this 30-06 unless you just want to. So if you are a person who is a fan of a 270 or a 30-06 and you're just mad as could be that there's these new fang-dangled cartridges out here, come on, guy, get over it. They're cool in their own right. But if you're one of these guys that say, oh my goodness, if it wasn't made in the last 20 years, it's an old fuddy-duddy cartridge that nobody cares about. Dude, 115-year-old cartridge, still one of the most popular of all time. There's a reason it's still around. You know how many cartridges have came and went while this stayed up there? So, there's no right or wrong answer. The newer cartridges are probably better designed, and I would probably advise you to go with that. But if you've already got one, you can do a lot with what you have. And the 30-06 in particular, my goodness. If you want a more efficient version of the 30-06, get a 308. But you're going to give up a little bit of power, a little bit of foot-pounds of energy, a little bit of velocity potential. But you're going to get a more efficient round. This particular 30-06 is a 22-inch barrel, but generally speaking, you'll have a 24-inch barrel in a 30-06, and you really don't want a 22-inch barrel. I would say a 24-inch barrel is what you want. But with a 308, a 22-inch barrel kind of fits that need that you're going for, because you've already willing to sacrifice a little bit of velocity for efficiency. Go with a 22-inch barrel. What if you want more power? What if you want more power than a 30-06? Then get a 300 Winchester Magnum. But you probably need to get a 26-inch barrel. 24 would definitely work. But if you want that potential, if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit more recoil to get that extra power, then you might as well get a 26-inch barrel to burn as much powder as possible and get full advantage of that extra powder capacity. There's so many 30 caliber rounds that specifically are going to be better at a specific thing. But is there anything wrong with a 30-06? No, not at all. In fact, if you could only have one, I'd say get the 30-06. If you had a 308, a 22-inch barreled 308 rifle, and say a 26-inch barreled 300 Winchester Magnum, or maybe even better, a 24-inch barreled 300 Winchester Short Magnum. If you had that combo, wow, that'd be a heck of a combo. But if you could only have one 30 caliber, here you go, 30-06. 30-06 is amazingly versatile, and it just continually shines. African hunters love the 30-06. Ultra dangerous game like elephants in Cape Buffalo, no, you're gonna want to go up in caliber and power. But probably more African game have been killed with a 30-06 than anything else. Maybe the 375 H&H might beat it. You look at deer in America, you look at elk, I'd say just as many have been killed with a 30-06 as anything else. 30-06 was our rifle of choice, our cartridge of choice in our Springfield rifle through 2 world wars. In World War II, we kept the Springfield rifle with the 30-06 as a sniper rifle, but we came up with the M1 Garand as a semi-automatic version. 30-06 is probably, and I might change my mind tomorrow, probably my favorite cartridge of all time. The military history, the hunting history, I guess, for lack of a better term, the fact it's still around, the fact it's still good. This thing feeds really well. It's got a long barrel life. It's got plenty of power. It's got plenty of velocity, and it's so versatile. You shoot a 110 grain bullet up to a 220 grain round nose bullet. You can do so much with a 30-06. So 30-06 is so phenomenal. It's so awesome, and it can never be replaced. Are there better cartridges at certain things? Yes. Is it the greatest 30 caliber? In my opinion, it is, but objectively, no. Are modern cartridges designs better than classic cartridge designs? I would say yes. But if you already have something like a 30-06, do you need to replace it? No, there's not that big of a difference. Literally, the difference is not big enough to say, oh my gosh, I have got to sell that 30-06. It's got to leave immediately. I've got to get a 300 Short Magnum. I've got to get a 300 PRC. Got to get a 30 Nosler. Is there a difference? Yes, there is. Is it big enough to say you got to sell what you have and go to the next thing? No, not at all. If you've watched any of my greatest all-around cartridge videos, 30-06 doesn't win. It always ends up in the last few, but it doesn't win. But it's always talked about, and it always hangs in there. It's 115 years old. Pretty cool. And just an FYI, when I say classic cartridges, I'm referring to like the 1880s, 1890s time frame with like the 6.5 by 55 Swede, the 7mm Mauser, 8mm Mauser, up to today, or up until the more efficient design started to come out, including the 30-06. So pre-1880, I don't consider those classic cartridges. I would consider those primitive cartridges. They were designed around black powder. They were designed around guns that weren't as rigid and stout as they could be. The metallurgy at that time was not as strong as it is today. So I would consider those primitive cartridges, but from like the 1880s on, I would consider those classic cartridges. You look at your Creedmoors and you look at your PRCs, and you look at all your Remington Ultra short magnums and all your 308 cases and all your Winchester short magnums, all those shorter, more compact, even the Ackley improved cartridges, those really kind of started it out. Getting understanding that shorter cartridge, less taper, steeper angle, just seemed to be a better cartridge design. One of the very first was the 284 Winchester. You should read about that. There's a lot of really cool cases, a lot of really cool stuff happening today. I'm a big fan, and let's be honest, they're better in some ways. But let's also be honest, to the other side of the coin, there is nothing wrong with this, and it doesn't need to be replaced. It's awesome. All right, I'll stop rambling. Until next time, take care.